So an update then from the emergency services into the coach crash, which very sadly has claimed the life of one child. We heard there from the police, the fire, ambulance crews as well. It seems that one child has died. 2 children were taken by air ambulance, 21 people in total taken to hospital. We know that between 60 and 70 people were on board this bus. They describe how it fell 20 feet down a bankment. It was a technically difficult incident and incredibly challenging scenes, and so very hard for those families who have been waiting for their children to return from a school trip with just days left of the school term. Well, let's bring in our West of England correspondent, Dan Whitehead, who is at Bridgewater tonight. Very, very sad news this evening then, Dan.
Yeah, incredibly sad. Confirmation there from police that one child has died following that crash just before 3 o'clock this afternoon in Exmoor. As you say, that coach was on its way to Minehead Middle School. A large number of adults and pupils on that bus, 60 to 70 people. That update we just had from emergency services. Let's just bring you the top lines. Of course, it's very sad news that, as I say, one child has died, and police confirming that their specialist officers are in communication with that child's family. There were 2 children who suffered serious injuries, some with serious injuries. 2 were taken by air ambulance to hospital. Police described it as an incredibly challenging scene and a truly tragic incident. We had an update as well from Wayne Darch, from the ambulance service. He confirmed that 21 people were taken to hospital and some 46 items of resources were deployed by the ambulance service, and the fire service as well, saying that they had 60 personnel. And interesting as well there, we heard from Gavin Ellis from the fire service saying that an off-duty fire officer who happened to be travelling behind the coach at the time of the crash was able to start to help to get the passengers and those adults off that coach. We know that specialist teams were, and you say it was a very complex situation, the fire say, were having to cut out some of those passengers. So you can just only imagine how difficult this scene would have been when this coach overturned, and as we understand it, went down this very steep slope in this area of Exmoor. So an incredibly tragic day, a confirmation from police there that one child has died.
Dan, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Let us bring in the local MP, Rachel Gilmore, MP for Tiverton and Minehead. Certainly our sympathies conveyed to all those involved in this incident tonight. What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to use trite words like my heart goes out to the families, because that's what people always say. We are a very tight community in Tiverton and Minehead. I visited Minehead Middle School just a few weeks ago, and I met the children, and they were full of joy and enthusiasm and very positive. I know many of their parents. I know the road very well. It's a very difficult road to manoeuvre. I think all I can say to my constituents, many of whom are my friends, is be grateful for what the fire service, the ambulance service and the police have done. And as their member of parliament, it is sadly my job sometimes to just, I don't know. I don't have words, actually. I've never been in this position before. But I'm famous for giving my constituents a cuddle when they need one. And just stay positive. Just stay positive. If there is a bright side, it is that we have a fantastically close community here. But this will affect not just the children, not just their parents. It will affect grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins. And it's a day that I wish I didn't have to comment on.
Well, we know that Minehead, nestles just north of Exmoor. We heard from the emergency services how difficult this was for them to deal with, to access, to get to those who were injured. Are you able to just describe to us, the road where this happened, what they would have been faced with when they arrived?
It is a very, very difficult road. So you have a very difficult crossing at Wedden Cross. And as you come out of Wedden Cross to dip down into Timberscombe, the road is really windy and there are very steep dips on either side. So if the coach, as the police are saying, went 20 feet off the road, you are literally on a really, really steep bank.
And tell us a bit about the school. I mean, I have a daughter on a school trip right now. There are, hundreds, thousands of families across Britain who can empathise with this. But for the children, just a few days left of the school term, there's a celebratory atmosphere now, isn't there, for children?
In a way, that makes it even more tragic. You can imagine their parents giving them their picnic lunches and sending them off to Exmoor Zoo, which is where I used to take my children when they were young. Minehead Middle School makes my heart sing. It was a school that was underperforming, and then Laura Mackey became the headmistress, and she has changed that school in the last 2 or 3 years. And I visited it about 2 months ago, and I visited all the classrooms. I had a meeting with Year 8s. They're going to come and see me in Parliament because they're, that's what I try and do with all my schools. But the children were full of confidence. They were happy. They were secure. And I literally, as a mother of 4 myself, I cannot imagine how those parents are feeling. And I will do anything I can to help, but actually that's quite trite. What can I do to help?
Well, we hear you're upset. We know that one family is grieving tonight. 2 children taken by air ambulance, 21 in total injured. So how do you want this close-knit community, as you've described, to rally round and help everybody involved right now?
That's all we do. I know I've got a constituency which, is partly in Devon, partly in Somerset, but there is a really, really close community, particularly on Exmoor. And Minehead Middle School takes in children from Exmoor, it takes in children from Porlock. We are a really, really close community, and we will pull together, because I'm from Somerset and lived in Devon for the last 30 years. We will pull together. We will pull together. But it would just be crass of me to say to a parent who's just lost their child that I can make things better. I can't. All I can say is that from one mother to another, I feel your pain.
We heard the police asking that people do not speculate as to what happened here, but how important is it that an investigation into the cause of this crash is carried out as swiftly as possible?
That's going to happen anyway. I mean, that's what happens, and I'm certainly not going to speculate. It'll be cruel and wrong. So no, I will leave the authorities to carry out the investigations that they need to carry out. And in the meantime, I will be there to support the families, the school, the wonderful headmistress at Minehead Middle School and the wonderful teachers there and the wonderful children there. When I went there 2 months ago, it was just joyous. And I'm so, so, so sad. I'm a new MP. I've never had to deal with this before, and I'm actually really surprised by how much it hurts.
Rachel Gilmore, sending sympathy, obviously, from everyone here at Sky. Thank you so much for your time. That's the MP for Tiverton and Minehead, with the news this evening that a young child has died after a coach crash. They were heading to Minehead Middle School after a day out. Well, let us turn now on the world to events in Washington. Before his downfall, Jeffrey Epstein socialised with the world's richest and most powerful men. And in the years since his death, in a prison cell, the conspiracy theories about how he died and the contents of the so-called Epstein files have continued on corners of the internet. Well, that was until Donald Trump made their full disclosure a campaign promise. His base believed he would do what he said. He did not. And now he has to bat away questions about the paedophile financier at every public appearance.
The president believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough review, and they did that. And they all agreed, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general, on the memo that they drafted and they released.
Well, that was his spokesperson today. So what happened to these so-called missing minutes? If there is really nothing to see here, then why not release the files as promised? Chiding the press and formerly loyal supporters without addressing their questions is having the opposite effect. Well, the president fanned the flames of the conspiracy, then tried to brand it as fake news. So how will it affect his time in office?
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
President, your daughter-in-law said that there should be transparency in the Epstein case. Do you agree with her, sir?
The Attorney General's handled that very well.
Sure. As long as the president wants me here, and I believe he's made that crystal clear, it's 4 years.
Instead, they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
Obviously, the intelligence community is trying to cover it up. Obviously, the Trump administration is trying to cover up. Something changed because they ran on this idea of exposing it all.
Where's the Epstein files? Boo, can't find them. Don't exist. Like, they can get away with.
Are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
To have all of the credible information released for the American people to make their decision. We trust the American people, and I know the president does as well.
I think the time has come for the administration to release all of the files regarding Jeffrey Epstein's investigation and prosecution.
Why they would be so interested? He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is.
Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews. He's being dragged into this, James, at every turn. What happened to the great promised release, and can Donald Trump make all of this go away?
Well, we'll see. I mean, this story is kryptonite for the president, Anna, the story that hasn't gone away for Trump. And we got a sense, I think, from today's White House press briefing that it is sticking around for a while at least. There were half a dozen questions on Epstein for the press secretary, questions that persist. They have done on a daily basis. And I think there's every chance they will continue, because I'm not sure today, at least, we got definitive answers. Trump, yesterday, he was labeling this an Epstein hoax. Caroline Levitt today was asked directly, well, he said it's a hoax. What is the hoax? And she declined to give a direct answer to that. There was more deflection. Trump's difficulty is the responses provided over a series of days, weeks now. They don't satisfy the critics. What the critics want is a full release of the documents, as promised by Trump and others, of these Epstein files. Trump himself, he said they were being covered up before he returned to the White House. His particular difficulty is that these accusers, they're supporters of his MAGA base. They cried deep state cover-up, and they cry that today. But Trump, of course, it's a problem for him because he is facing a fracture in that MAGA support base, the like of which he has not seen since he assumed power this February. So, he's desperately trying to smooth it over. His latest attempt yesterday was when he had turned on his supporters, called them past supporters, said they were weaklings doing the Democrats' work for them. It's the strategy now of antagonism following ongoing attempts to quell the disquiet. But, it sticks around amidst his refusal to sack any of his key officials, his inner circle, people like Pan Bondi, the Attorney General. In February, she said, the files are on my desk, but her line now is that there is no incriminating evidence, nothing to see here.
Well, indeed, it's not just the Epstein files, is it? The suggestion of this client list, as you mentioned. It is also the CCTV outside Epstein's prison cell, 3 minutes allegedly cut out. And this really is what is fueling the conspiracy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a video was released by the DOJ, Department of Justice, and the FBI last week. It showed Epstein's cell door around the material time when he was found dead, hanged in his cell. But there were 3 minutes missing from this 11 hours of material. The FBI and DOJ, they described this material, surveillance footage, as full and raw inside New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center. But Wired magazine, they conducted a forensic analysis, and that suggests there were nearly 3 minutes cut from the tape. They found one of the source clips was longer than the segment in the final video that the public saw. The magazine did qualify that by saying there was no definitive proof of any kind of deceptive manipulation. But also it made the point, actually, that this 1 minute gap, it may all be related to a 1 minute gap just before midnight when the clock was reset. So, it's a developing story, a continuing conspiracy theory with added layers actually by the day.
James, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, also in Washington for us tonight is the Republican strategist Matthew Bartlett, who was a Trump appointee to the US State Department. Good to see you, Mr. Bartlett. So Trump has asked his supporters to quieten down about the Epstein information. Will they? And if they don't, how big a deal is it for Donald Trump?
Yes, good evening, Anna. It's a hot day here in Washington, but the heat continues around Jeffrey Epstein and all of the circumstances. This has been an ongoing issue, asymmetric, not even an issue, certainly not a policy issue, but an issue around, again, horrific crimes that were committed, money and power, potentially people in wealth who have gotten away with these crimes, and now a crescendo moment where many of the outsiders are now in power, and many of those supporters are incredulous, and they do not believe that the government is telling us all the truth. That is a larger looming crisis, as again, the circumstances around Jeffrey Epstein eat into the credibility of Donald Trump and this administration right now.
Well, you say people potentially involved, making the point we don't know. So spell it out for us if you can. What do these, Trump supporters, MAGA supporters want to find out? What is left to be answered now?
I think it was discussed earlier. It is not about sacking a government official. This is not about a new, fresh face that has credibility to reiterate the same talking points. This is about the questions. Who is this person, Jeffrey Epstein, who was a headmaster at a school, who then amassed an incredible fortune in New York, became friends with the rich and powerful, and then again the crimes that he was convicted of human trafficking, of pedophilia, and the allegations that there are some very big names that also participated in that. People want to know who those people are. They want to see them held to account. They want to see justice in motion, and they want to see transparency in their government. This is probably the largest sentiment. Let's remember Donald Trump came to power maybe as a result or in part around the notion of an erosion of faith in our government, faith in our leaders, faith maybe even in the news. And this created an alternative right-wing news where this story, this narrative was questioned repeatedly. You saw people like Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, who were outsiders, J.D. Vance, the president's family, continue to perpetuate this narrative when they were outside of power. Now in power, they are not giving clear answers and clearly not meeting the moment and realizing that this is not around, again, a policy issue. This is not Republican versus Democrat. This is around a crisis of American confidence in their government.
And for Donald Trump himself, without being slanderous or libelous, he was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, wasn't he, for well over 10 years. All those photographs that we've seen him with, the clamour becomes, what are you hiding, Mr. President?
Anna, you are correct. The president had a personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein for the better part of 15 years. And the open source reporting is rather exculpatory, exonerating. He found out that this was a shady figure, kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, even was helpful in an affidavit and testimony for one of the victims. So there is also reporting that Donald Trump is in these files. We remember just weeks ago, Elon Musk throwing a bit of a bomb on X saying that Donald Trump is in these files. It is possible that Donald Trump is in these files, but certainly not attached to the nefarious and illegal behaviors and allegations around the human trafficking and sexual crimes. Yet it seems as if the president may recognize that and may not even want his name associated with the release of these files. So this is very fluid. And again, it involves many, many people, at least the allegations, and how you get to the truth is certainly an issue right now.
Matthew Bartlett, perhaps we'll talk again. It's really interesting. Thank you very much indeed. Well, one person who fueled the flames on Jeffrey Epstein was Elon Musk. Elon Musk, the man who bet big on Donald Trump. No single business leader did more financially or otherwise to support his return to the White House. But shortly after, the billionaire was farewelled from his government job at the end of May. The cracks in their relationship quickly erupted into an all-out feud, and that's had serious implications for Elon Musk's largest business, Tesla.
Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want to have maybe gasoline, maybe electric, maybe a hybrid.
Well, Elon Musk's contentious cost-cutting role in the Trump administration had already made Tesla a target of activists who encouraged vandalism and arson attacks on the vehicles worldwide. So are his problems about to get even worse? Our business and economics correspondent, Paul Kelso, takes a look.
Come here. Take over, Elon. Just take over.
It's the bromance that drove Donald Trump to the presidency. Elon Musk's millions that helped him get elected repaid with a job cutting billions from federal budgets and turning the White House into a Tesla showroom. But the love-in has hit the brakes after the president cut subsidies worth billions of dollars every year to Tesla, raising questions about its viability.
Tesla's incredible journey from startup to the world's biggest EV manufacturer was helped enormously by government subsidies that are now being cut. Sky News analysis has found that last year the company banked $2.8 billion. That's equivalent to 38% of its profit from state-level subsidies Donald Trump has just cut. Also gone at the stroke of the president's pen, a $7,500 tax credit to anyone who wants to buy any EV.
That makes every one of these Teslas more than 15% more expensive for American consumers.
Taking the subsidies away, Tesla has, over its lifetime, burnt cash. In fact, excluding the subsidies it got last quarter, they would have lost money. So the subsidies have been critical, not only to the earnings they report, but to their ability to sustain as a going entity.
Without the subsidies, we might say Tesla was in the red.
Without the subsidies, Tesla's business is losing money.
Goodwood's Festival of Speed celebrates the petrol-driven world that Elon Musk took on, building a market as well as a company, making electric cars not just virtuous, but desirable. Having put 7 million of them on the road, Tesla now faces its greatest challenge.
Subsidies aren't Elon Musk's only problem. Tesla is facing enormous competition from Chinese EVs and established European manufacturers finally catching up. And sales are falling around the world. And some of that may be down to Musk himself. The man who was Tesla's greatest asset is, for some, becoming a liability.
Musk needs to focus on Tesla. The political antics, the brand damage in the US, especially in Europe, the increasing competition in China, the tax subsidies. Look, it's a moment of truth time for Tesla to get through this period, but I believe brighter days are ahead.
As time goes on, and especially as the subsidies are disappearing this quarter, you know, I mean, it didn't even make it to the end of the year. You know, this is going to affect Tesla sales this year. Basically, nobody wants to buy Teslas anymore, and most people driving them are just driving them because they already have one and they can't sell it.
Among the petrol heads and potential Tesla owners at Goodwood's Festival of Speed, Musk remains divisive.
What do you think about the boss of Tesla?
Can't put that on camera, can we?
Really?
No, I don't think think he's a
Do you
good
think
guy.
he might be putting people off?
Yeah, with what he's been saying in the press and so forth, yeah.
Our daughter desperately wants a Tesla, so
Does
yes.
she?
There's always somebody in this world that's done something wrong with some products, but it doesn't stop us buying it.
Elon Musk has described Donald Trump's cuts as disgusting and very unfair. The president says more could follow. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, just returning briefly to the bus crash as well. We've just had this from Sir Keir Starmer. He has said a heartbreaking update on the school bus crash in Somerset. There are no adequate words to acknowledge the death of a child. All my thoughts are with their parents, family and friends and all those affected. Thank you to the emergency workers who are responding at pace. I'm being kept up to date on the situation. The words there of Sir Keir Starmer. Well, let's go back to Paul Kelso's investigation into the perils for Tesla right now and bring in Esben Pedersen, who was Tesla's communications manager for Scandinavia between 2012 and 2016. I mean, clearly there's a lot going on here, isn't there? But do you mind if I take you through it chronologically? First of all, did Musk working for and with Donald Trump damage the business? First of all, in terms of Elon Musk's focus and his time, and in terms of the political backwash of it?
There's a little time delay here, so yeah. Well, I mean, I think the short story is yes, it hurt Tesla. It probably hurts big auto in Europe and the US more. It definitely hurts the transition to cleaner energy, and it probably only benefits the Chinese EV manufacturers. I mean, Trump is right when he said that Tesla was built on subsidies. The first government loan Tesla got was on, I think, $465 million, and it was used to scale the production of the first mass market car. But in that perspective, you have to know that, you know, this was money available to everybody. Ford got about $6 billion in loans, and Nissan US got $1.5 billion. So this funding has been available to everybody, and everybody has used it. Then there's the zero emission credits. Tesla is the only manufacturer who has been able to make money selling credits. Basically, the credits works this way that, you know, governments over the world, they want car manufacturers to produce clean cars. And if they don't, they get fined. Tesla produce clean cars and they can sell their credits to other companies so they avoid being fined. But everybody can do this. But Tesla is just the only company with big enough volume on clean cars for it to make sense. And then there's the last thing that Trump talked about, which is the tax rebate for the US customers. I believe it's $7,500. All the other car manufacturers also can also use this. So as long as you produce an electric vehicle, you get access to this funding. So that's not specific to Tesla in any way.
So if we have this combination of events, which is car sales falling, Tesla car sales falling, subsidies being pulled, the emergence of the Chinese car market, overtaking the market share, for example, of Tesla, is this danger territory for the company now?
I think it's danger territory for all car manufacturers right now, trying to make this transition to electric cars. And I think Tesla has a big advantage because they were first, and the Chinese have a big advantage because they are supported in different ways by their government, and they have made tremendous progress in technology.
So, I mean, are you actually saying that by pulling those subsidies, the regulatory credit, as you described, is that actually helping China? So is Trump actually helping, China take over effectively?
I think the only beneficiary I can see from these is the Chinese car industry, because they can't sell cars in the US anyway, so they're not affected. This hurts everybody in the American car industry. And you have to remember that Tesla is the only car manufacturer in US and Europe who's able to make money selling electric cars. I think on average, Tesla makes about $5,900 in profit. So they can actually afford to lower the prices in the US. They only sell about a quarter of the cars in the US. Everybody else is bleeding already.
We're running out of time. I do want to ask you one question, if you don't mind, about Elon Musk. Huge and revolutionary impact, no doubt, on this market. But, should he stay or should he go, do you think?
He's not going to leave. I mean, he controls the board and no one can fire him. And I don't think he thinks his job is done. I think he wants to show the world that he can make a turnaround and that he can be, back in the spotlight in a positive way.
Espen Pedersen, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now, an Israeli shell today hit the compound housing Gaza's only Catholic church, where Christians and Muslims have been sheltering from the war. Church officials say 3 people were killed, while the parish priest, who was close to the late Pope Francis through his daily phone calls, is among those wounded. Israel issued a rare apology, saying every innocent life lost was a tragedy, as Pope Leo XIV renewed his call for an immediate ceasefire. Sky's Lisa Holland has this report now from Jerusalem.
The cross of the Holy Family Catholic Church in northern Gaza is still standing. But from this angle, with the cross on the left of the picture, you can see the devastation caused to the rest of the building by what has been described as a direct hit. Dazed survivors from Gaza's only Catholic church were treated at a nearby hospital. The church had reportedly been sheltering Christians and Muslims as Israel's war with Gaza rages on.
The church was struck and innocent people, elderly and children, were inside. My mother sustained a shrapnel wound to her head. We just want peace.
This photograph shows the parish priest, Father Gabriel Romanelli, originally from Argentina, being treated for a leg wound. Catholics around the world became familiar with the Gazan church because of its close relationship with the late Pope Francis. A pontiff who spoke out on global issues, he faithfully checked in on the welfare of the priest and his community every night at 7 p.m. The church was one of the oldest buildings in Gaza, and in spite of the war managed to continue its mission. This was a special mass when Pope Francis passed away. In a statement, the Vatican said, His Holiness Pope Leo XIV was deeply saddened to learn of the loss of life and injury caused by the military attack on the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza. His Holiness renews his call for an immediate ceasefire, and he expresses his profound hope for dialogue, reconciliation and enduring peace in the region. Around the world, Catholics have expressed their distress over the attack on the church and the continuing loss of life.
The reality is that those places, churches, mosques, Hospitals, schools should never be targets. And that's against humanitarian law, but it's also against any sense of natural justice.
The area where the church is, near Gaza City, has seen some of the worst destruction since the conflict began. And in recent days, Israeli attacks have been particularly intense. Israel says it deeply regrets that the church was hit by what it says was a stray munition. It says the incident is being investigated and that Israel remains committed to protecting civilians and holy sites. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Two of the Israelis who were held captive by Hamas said today they hope a ceasefire deal can be done to bring everyone home. Keith and Aviva Siegel spoke at the Israeli embassy in London. Aviva described being denied food by the Hamas fighters while they ate in front of her.
Think about all the 50 hostages that are still in Gaza, that we know that 20 of them are still alive and begging to get out of being underneath the ground, because I know what it's like. I was underneath the ground and I touched death with Keith. There was no oxygen for us to breathe, and we were taken away every human rights that normal people need. We weren't allowed to move. We were starved while they ate in front of us. We were thirsty because they didn't give us water, even though they drank water and ate in front of us. And we weren't allowed to even cry. I had to hide myself crying. And I want to just say that if you or everybody that's listening to me would have seen what we looked like and how they treated us in such a brutal way underneath the ground in Gaza, we would have been out a long time ago. Because what they are doing and what they did to us is not right, and nobody in this world should ever go something like that, like Keith and I went through. There's Elon Oil, that the grenade was thrown and he tried to protect himself and he's still got pieces of grenade in his eyes. We know of the hostages that came back, that some of them were chained for months. And the conditions, they lost half of their body weight and they just lay down, couldn't even stand, couldn't move, in dark places, most of them underneath the ground, just like Keith and I. We know what it's like. I'm a witness of one of the girls that was touched, and I'm just so proud of her because she couldn't show that something happened. She had to continue smiling as if nothing happened to her, because he said that if she'll ever say something, she will be killed.
I was in captivity and I was held alone for 6 months out of the 484 days. I was always thinking about my family and how much they are suffering, and the distress of not being able to let them know that I'm alive and that I'm dealing with the situation created a lot of stress. I was very empowered by the fact that I knew my family, and so many people were doing all they can to get me back, to get me and to get all of the hostages back to their families. And I want to just re-emphasize that Hamas is responsible for this tragedy and for the suffering of so many people. Hamas carried out a terrorist attack on October the 7th. They murdered innocent people, babies, elderly people. They burned people alive in their homes, on our kibbutz, in our community of Kfar Aza. 64 of our friends that we have known for 40 years, friends and neighbors, were murdered, were killed. 19 of our community were kidnapped into Gaza. 2 of them, Gali and Ziv Berman, remain in captivity, and it's now 650 days. Their father is an invalid. Their mother is taking care of their father. Both of them were injured. They need to come home. All of the 50 need to come home. The alive to be treated. They're seriously injured, wounded people that have not really received medical attention. I spent time in captivity with 4. They all need to be returned, the alive so that they can be treated and rehabilitate, and the dead need to be brought back to their families for a proper burial. I call upon all the leaders of the world to do the moral thing, to do the humane thing, to save people, to save 50 people, to get an agreement signed that will prevent more and more suffering, more and more death and injury to so many people. I am back and I am alive because President Trump, his immense efforts to secure an agreement, he led that. He brought me home. He brought many hostages home. I believe he has I know that it's important to him. I know that he is prioritizing this. We have met him. I met him twice. He showed his concern and he expressed his urgency of getting the hostages back.
I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother, and I just want to say that it's the worst thing that could ever happen to worry about somebody that's there that you don't even know how they treated, but we do know because so many of the hostages, all the hostages that came back, have been telling these terrible stories. And I just don't understand how there's still hostages in Gaza. I just want to believe that they'll come home, and they'll come home alive, and it'll be soon, because we've all had enough. And I want to ask the leaders of the world, you've been chosen to lead this world to be a better world. By leaving the hostages there, you're making Hamas feel that they're winning and that they're strong, and it shouldn't be like that.
Aviva and Keith Siegel, they're pleading for a ceasefire to be agreed. Now, the daredevil Felix Baumgartner has died in a paragliding accident in Italy. According to reports, the Austrian adventurer crashed his motorised glider into a swimming pool. The local mayor has suggested that the 56-year-old may have suffered a mid-air medical issue. Baumgartner rose to fame back in 2012 with his record-breaking skydive from the edge of space. Well, still to come on The World. Not a dumping ground. Outrage in one of Africa's smallest countries as the United States deports 5 violent criminals to Eswatini.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous.
We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Now, the US has deported a group that it describes as barbaric, criminal, illegal aliens to Eswatini, Africa's last absolute monarchy. Well, the 5 were flown there under the Trump administration's largely secretive third country deportation program. The US and Eswatini say they will now work with the UN to send them to their home countries, which includes Vietnam, Cuba and Yemen. Well, 2 weeks ago, 8 men were deported to another African nation, South Sudan, after the US Supreme Court lifted restrictions on sending people to countries where they have no ties. Well, let's talk more. Joining me now is Ramza Matimela, Secretary General of the Swaziland Liberation Movement, which advocates for democratic reforms in Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Well, welcome to you. I know you're in exile right now, but what do you make of this? People who are not fit to live in America, off they go to Eswatini in southern Africa.
My greetings. Thank you so much for hosting me and for the opportunity, especially to express our views as an organization pertaining the issue of the deported individuals from the United States. First and foremost, one might have to register with you that our organization is deeply committed to upholding human rights, with particular attention to the dignity and protection of refugees. However, in this scenario, we have seen a deportation of convicts from the United States into Swaziland, which became a shock, especially to us, the progressive and the nation at large, and even our neighboring countries. We want to register that as a political party, we are so much concerned about this deportation as much as we do respect the human right dignity of refugees. But in such a case whereby the United States itself saw it that it has to put the interest of the Americans first. For that reason, they didn't see it okay to keep such convicts within their community. They deported these individuals into our country. As much as our spokesperson had said, they are in preparation in terms of assisting each other on how they could be deported back into their original countries. But then we have heard that their original countries has refused them to be deported back. And it is only a child who can actually understand that deporting people from the United States into Swaziland, then back into their countries, which is a big process that comes with huge risk.
Just in terms of what the Eswatini government has said, they've put out what's meant to be a reassuring statement saying 5 inmates are currently housed in our correctional facilities in isolated units where similar offenders are kept. The nation is assured that these inmates pose no threat to the country or its citizens, and they refuse to say whether any payments were made as part of the arrangement. So what is your view? You know, have they been bullied into this by the Americans, or presumably there was some sort of sweetener?
Thank you so much for such a question. First of all, the convicts we are talking about didn't commit any crime in Swaziland as well as the United States, which makes it clear that their right has to be observed. They cannot be kept in custody where they haven't committed any crime as well as they haven't committed any crime in the United States. And we want to believe as an organization that there was an amount paid in this regard. The Minister of Health had said the United Nations has promised to continue to help Eswatini through the US aid and as far as the health sector is concerned. So for us, it tells us clear that the United States, together with Swaziland, has traded the safety of our people thinking that maybe they are trying to improve the health system, yet they haven't considered the safety of our people.
Well, we're running out of programme, but it's really fascinating to hear your thoughts on that. Ramza Matimela, thank you very much indeed on the news that inmates have been shipped to Eswatini in southern Africa by the Americans. The work, they say, continues to try to return them to their original countries, but as we heard there from Ramza, they're refusing to receive them. Ramza, thank you.
Okay.
Well, that is it for this edition of The World. Do stay with us if you can. I'll be back in a few minutes' time with Sky News at 10 in just a couple of minutes.